Hello everyone! This time, we will take you on a journey to a faraway, cold and mysterious planet, Uranus. What do we know about this planet? What spacecraft have visited the Uranus system, and what have they revealed? Welcome to our channel, everyone! In this video, we will give you the answers to these questions and other various information. Then let's get started! Planet or a fixed star? In general, most articles on the internet and school textbooks state that Uranus was discovered by the British astronomer William Herschel in 1781. But this is not absolutely true. In fact, Uranus has been observed before Herschel. According to one theory, Uranus had already been discovered by the ancient Greek astronomer Hipparchus in 128 BC. The results of his observations are also said to have formed the basis of the famous Almagest, written later by Ptolemy. At that time, there were no telescopes, and astronomers had to rely on what they could see. Uranus is often thought to be invisible to the naked eye, but in fact, it can be seen. The method is also available on the internet. Spoiler alert, this is a very difficult method. First of all, you have to have good vision. Perfect weather conditions are required, and you have to go far away from large cities with light pollution. So, in any case, it will not work. And even in ancient times and the Middle Ages, when there were no modern metropolises with light pollution, it was extremely difficult to meet this requirement. This is the reason why there have been no reliable records of observations of Uranus for 18 centuries after Hipparchus. The first successful telescopic observation of Uranus was made by John Flamsteed in 1690. He thought it was a fixed star, however, and named it 34 Taurus. It is not surprising that Flamsteed thought so. Uranus is so far from the Sun that it takes 84 years to complete one orbit. That's quite a long time compared to the orbital period of Saturn, which he recognized as the farthest from the Sun. It is possible that Flamsteed thought Uranus was a star rather than a planet because he did not realize that it was moving through the sky at an extremely slow speed. The first person in history to not only observe Uranus, but to correctly identify it as a planet was Herschel. This is his unquestionable achievement. Herschel also succeeded in discovering two large satellites of the seventh planet, Titania and Oberon, by using a highly accurate telescope. Furthermore, he had already suggested the presence of rings on Uranus as early as 1789. His prediction was actually confirmed as correct 200 years later in 1979. The world of the seventh planet. Since Herschel, we have been observing Uranus through telescopes for 2 centuries, and have obtained much information. For example, William Herschel discovered 2 large moons, Ariel and Umbriel, in 1851. And Kuiper discovered Miranda in 1948. In the past, some people thought that Uranus had a hard surface and that life might exist there, even if it was extremely cold. But by the first half of the 20th century, the majority of scientists were of the opinion that Uranus was a giant gas planet, or more precisely, a giant ice planet, and that it did not have a solid surface. The chemical composition of Uranus was also known. The main components of Uranus are hydrogen, helium, and methane. Also, its atmosphere contains a lot of ice, including methane, ammonia, and water, the crystals of which create dense clouds that stretch out for kilometers. And by the mid-20th century, it was common knowledge that Uranus had a very unusual way of rotating. Uranus's axis of rotation is heavily tilted with respect to its orbital plane. It is probably easiest to describe Uranus as rotating on its side with its head slightly down. The cause of this phenomenon was unknown at the time. And even now, experts have not come to a unified view. The year 1986 was welcomed with such knowledge of Uranus. In this very year, the famous Voyager 2 reached the 7th planet, passing at a distance of just over 80,000 kilometers. The first and to date only spacecraft to approach Uranus and send a photograph to Earth was Voyager 2. Voyager 2 allowed us to study in detail the characteristics of Uranus, such as how its days and nights change and how its seasons change. For some time, astronomers had believed that since Uranus's rotation axis was so tilted, there must be anomalies in its day and night. But it was difficult to imagine how much of an anomaly it was. Uranus has a rotation period of just over 17 hours. At the time of the summer solstice, however, day and night switch rapidly only in the equatorial latitudes. Uranus at this time of year has one of its poles facing the sun. Thus, at the time of the summer solstice, the hemisphere whose pole is on the sun side has long days almost everywhere. On the other side of the hemisphere, however, night lasts endlessly. In most areas of Uranus, the normal day-night variation associated with the planet's rotation is observed only during the vernal and autumnal equinoxes. At this time, the sun is directly in front of the equator. Now Uranus is approaching the winter solstice, already 15 years since it passed the autumnal equinox. Uranus is not scheduled to reach the winter solstice until 2028. Voyager 2 also succeeded in taking a closer look at Uranus's satellites. The spacecraft discovered several new moons of the 7th planet. They turned out to be small, unremarkable pebbles. Uranus has many satellites, but they are small. The largest one, Titania, is only about 1,500 kilometers in diameter. It can be said that the satellite is tiny compared to the moon of Earth and Ganymede. There is another mystery that was newly created by the Voyager 2 mission. That was Miranda. Miranda is a satellite of Uranus and is a small, nearly spherical object with a rather irregular shape. It has an average radius of about 235 kilometers. The existence of Miranda has been known before Voyager 2, but the images taken by Voyager puzzled experts. That's because Miranda looked like a splinter. There were many light and dark areas on Miranda's surface, with mountains, cracks, and fissures scattered all over the place. Why this was so has not yet been determined. Not long before Voyager 2 visited Uranus, a ring had been discovered on this planet. Much information about this ring was also obtained thanks to this probe. The ring was found to be mostly opaque, less than a few kilometers wide, and composed mainly of dust and small rocks. At this time, there are 13 known rings on Uranus. What will we learn in the future? As we mentioned earlier, Voyager 2 was the first spacecraft to successfully photograph Uranus and its satellites, and is the only probe to do so at this time. Then Voyager went further, leaving us with new information and new mysteries. A new Uranus exploration mission, the Uranus Orbiter Probe, is currently being planned. The probe is scheduled for launch in 2031. This mission plans to study the 7th planet in more detail and search for answers to some of the mysteries that have plagued many scientists. One of the mysteries is Miranda, which we mentioned earlier. And the second mystery is the problem of Uranus's rotation. Maybe it is related to the fact that the 7th planet collided with a large celestial body shortly after its birth, but further investigation is needed. Another mystery is the temperature of Uranus. On this planet, the poles receive more sunlight than the equatorial area, but for some reason, the equator is warmer. We still do not have a unified view as to what is involved in this. As you have already noticed, many interesting discoveries will await us in the future. We would like to end today's video with such an optimistic tone. Thank you all for watching. We hope you like this video. It would be helpful if you could subscribe and like the channel and share this video on social networking sites as much as possible. Please help us to develop this channel. With that, I'd like to say goodbye to you all for a while. See you all again soon. Bye!